The galaxy learned a harsh lesson about dealing with human children when we turned a dozen Yaren worlds into molten slag. I couldn't shake the hollow image of my son, Alex, frozen forever at 8 years old, smiling back at me from a decade ago. The Yadin had taken him, snatching away a helpless child to manipulate us over some worthless space rocks. We capitulated, abandoning our claim and pulling back our ships, but they never returned Alex. Instead, they sent a video of their scientists dissecting him like a frog in biology class, his screams tearing at my soul until his little body couldn't take anymore. I demanded the Yadin return Alex's body and the responsible butcher, but the Galactic Council shrugged it off, prioritizing the strategic value of the Yarens over human lives. They shielded child torturers because the Yadin had shiny plasma guns and fancy shields. But humanity was ready to unleash vengeance. For every drop of my son's blood spilled, we vowed to take an ocean of theirs. The galaxy was about to learn the terrifying truth. With human children, we were the most dangerous species. For Alex, for every murdered child, we were going to burn the Yadin and their enablers to ash. The Galactic Council failed to protect Alex, and now we were coming for Retribution. DNC Retribution streaked through the void, a predator on the hunt, its sleek black hull absorbing the starlight, ready to make the Yadin pay for every drop of human blood they spilled, for every innocent child they butchered in their twisted pursuits. Science Captain Reynolds tightened his grip on the arms of his command chair, his gaze fixed on the view screen where Arcturus Prime loomed ahead, seemingly tranquil. But Reynolds knew the truth, the horrors lurking beneath that placid surface, the same horrors that had stolen his daughter, tortured her, and ultimately killed her. He felt the weight of his crew's eyes upon him, men and women united by a shared purpose, a shared thirst for vengeance. "You all know our official orders," Reynolds began, his voice steely. "Recon only. Observe and report." A wry smile touched his lips. "But I think we can all agree that's not enough." There were nods of agreement, murmurs of assent. "The truth is, we're not here to watch. We're here to make them pay. To burn their cities to glass, their planet to ashes. To send a message to the galaxy that humanity will no longer tolerate the slaughter of our children." The murmurs grew louder, an escalating wave of anger, but not everyone seemed convinced. Reynolds saw the hesitation in some eyes, the uncertainty. He couldn't blame them. What he was proposing went against every regulation in the book. But those regulations hadn't saved his daughter, nor had they saved countless other human children stolen by the Yarens for their twisted experiments. "I know some of you have doubts," Reynolds softened his tone, "and I understand. What we're about to do isn't easy. But think of the children. Not just my daughter, but all the others torn from their families, tortured, murdered, while the Galactic Council stood by and did nothing." Captain Anderson's voice cracked, raw emotion bleeding through. "We have to send a message. We have to show them that humanity will no longer be victims, that we will fight for our children no matter the cost." The atmosphere in the bridge shifted, as if a current of electricity had passed through the crew. He saw it in their eyes, the determination, the righteous fury. They were with him. "Prepare for orbital bombardment," Anderson ordered, retaking his seat. "And run full scans of the planet and surrounding space. Something doesn't feel right." The bridge erupted into activity as the crew rushed to carry out his commands. Why was Arcturus Prime so undefended? Where was the Yaren fleet? The questions gnawed at him, even as anticipation built in his gut. Soon, he would have his revenge. Soon, the Yarens would learn the price of spilling human blood. But first, he had to make sure they weren't flying into a trap. He had to ensure that the UNSC Retribution would be the instrument of humanity's vengeance, not another casualty of Yaren cruelty. A chill ran down Anderson's spine as the scan results flashed across the view screen. "What the hell?" he muttered, leaning forward in his chair. The readout showed a sprawling network of underground chambers, each one packed with thousands upon thousands of pulsating Yaren eggs. The entire planet had been transformed into a colossal breeding facility. "That explains the lack of defenses," Commander Vasquez said, her face grim. "They think the Council's protection makes them untouchable." Anderson nodded, his mind racing. This was an opportunity, a chance to strike a devastating blow against the Yarens. But not everyone agreed. "Sir, if we destroy those eggs..." Lieutenant Ramirez's voice was hesitant. "Won't that make us no better than them?" The bridge erupted into a cacophony of arguments. Some sided with Ramirez, insisting that they had to be better than the enemy. Others, their voices sharp with fury, demanded retribution at any cost. Anderson slammed his fist on the armrest, silencing the debate. "Those eggs will hatch into more monsters like the ones who tortured my son, who've tortured countless human children," Anderson declared. "We have a chance to stop that, to make sure no more families suffer like mine has." He met Ramirez's eyes, his gaze unflinching. "We're not doing this for revenge. We're doing it to protect our people, our future." As the crew processed the chilling revelation, a proximity alert blared through the bridge. "Sir, Yaren's ship emerging from the planet's shadow," Ensign Patel called out, her voice tense. The view screen flickered, and a chittering voice filled the air. "Captain Anderson, I've been expecting you." Anderson's blood ran cold. He recognized that voice, heard it in his nightmares, mingled with his daughter's screams. "Sirius," he growled, his expression darkening. The Yaren scientist's insectoid face leered at him from the screen. "You humans are so predictable, so emotional." Sirius clacked his mandibles in a grotesque approximation of a laugh. "Your daughter provided valuable data. You know her suffering advanced our understanding of your species' physiology immensely." Red tinged the edges of Anderson's vision as rage surged within him. "You monster," he seethed. "No, Captain, I am a scientist, and your species' weakness has been most enlightening." Sirius' compound eyes glittered with malice. "You could have struck at us long ago, but you lacked the courage, the resolve, and now it is too late." Anderson surged to his feet, his rage a palpable presence. "Shut off that transmission," he commanded. The screen went dark, but Sirius' mocking laughter still echoed in his ears. He turned to his crew, his expression hardened. "Prepare for orbital bombardment. We end this now." No one argued, no one hesitated. They moved as one, united in their determination to bring justice to the monsters who had stolen their children and shattered their lives. The UNSC Retribution's weapons powered up with an ominous hum, targeting the breeding facility below. Anderson's finger hovered over the firing button, his whole body trembling with barely contained rage. For every child the Yarens have tortured and killed, for every family shattered by their cruelty, he vowed, we will turn their planet to glass and ash. We will burn every last one of their abominations from the stars. With a decisive press, the view screen erupted into searing light as the first salvo struck home. Nuclear fire consumed the Yaren breeding facility, the planet's surface buckling and cracking under the onslaught. Billions of eggs boiled away in an instant. The Yaren's twisted plans turned to ash. But there was no time to savor the victory. Sirius' ship opened fire, and the battle for justice raged on. Bolts of plasma lanced through the void, slamming into the shields of the Avenger. The bridge shook violently, sparks cascading from overloaded consoles as the crew fought to maintain control. "Return fire!" Captain Reynolds roared, his voice a thunderous command. "That bastard ship!" The Avenger's cannons thundered in response, a relentless barrage that tore through the Yaren vessel's defenses like tissue paper. Explosions rippled across its hull, atmosphere venting from gaping wounds. Reynolds turned to the Marine commander, his eyes steely. "Prepare a boarding party. I want Sirius alive." The commander nodded grimly, a glint of determination in his eyes. Minutes later, Reynolds led the Marines through the smoking ruins of the Yaren ship, the acrid stench of burned insectoid flesh thick in the air. Plasma fire zipped past their heads as the remaining Yaren crew fought with desperate ferocity. But the humans were relentless, driven by a righteous fury that no force could withstand. They cut through the Yarens like a plasma torch through steel, leaving shattered carapaces in their wake. At last, they reached the bridge. The doors hissed open, revealing Sirius hunched over the controls, his once pristine exoskeleton cracked and oozing. The Yaren scientist looked up, compound eyes glittering with hate. "You're too late, human," he chittered, mandibles clicking. My ship is set to self-destruct in minutes. We'll all be nothing more than cosmic dust. Reynolds leveled his rifle at Sirius' head, fighting the urge to pull the trigger. You're coming with us, you son of a... He paused, his voice tight with rage. You're going to answer for what you've done. Sirius laughed, a wet gurgling sound, green blood bubbling from his mouth. You think this ends here with me? You've only ensured your species' destruction. The Yaren will never stop until every last human is wiped from the stars. The countdown to self-destruct blared, the seconds ticking away. Reynolds grabbed Sirius, ignoring the alien's pained screech as he hauled him toward the waiting dropship. They barely made it out before the Yaren ship exploded, the shockwave rattling the Avenger down to its bones. On the bridge, the crew watched in silence as the last remnants of the breeding facility burned away, the planet's surface a hellscape of molten rock and destruction. The taste of victory was bitter for Reynolds, for he knew that Sirius was right. This was only the beginning. The Yarens would come for them now, with all the fury of a species scorned, and humanity would have to be ready. The UNSC Avenger turned, setting a course for Earth, for home. But even as the stars streaked past, Reynolds couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading not toward triumph, but toward a reckoning. A war that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. And he would be there to meet it, head on, for Alex, for humanity, no matter the cost. The Avenger streaked through hyperspace, racing back to Earth with its precious cargo. Sirius, the Yaren scientist responsible for Alex's death and countless other atrocities, sat shackled in the brig, his compound eyes gleaming with malevolent defiance. Reynolds paced the corridor outside, his mind churning with the weight of what was to come. As the ship docked at the orbital station, a swarm of reporters and UN officials descended upon them, cameras flashing and questions flying. Reynolds escorted Sirius down the ramp, the Yaren's chitus exoskeleton clanking against his restraints. They pushed through the throng, focused on the task at hand. The trial was swift and merciless, broadcast across the galaxy. It laid bare the horrifying truth of the Yaren crimes. Survivors testified to the unspeakable experiments inflicted upon human children, their voices cracking with grief and rage. Reynolds himself took the stand, recounting the gut-wrenching details of Alex's final moments. Through it all, Sirius remained unrepentant. He chittered and clicked his mandibles, twisting into a grotesque approximation of a smile. You think this matters? He hissed as Reynolds glared at him from across the courtroom. Even now, our fleets gather. We will scour your pitiful species from the stars, and your suffering will be legendary. The Galactic Council, seated in the observer's gallery, shifted uncomfortably as the evidence mounted and public outrage grew. They realized their complicity could no longer be ignored. The counselor, a spindly gray alien, approached Reynolds during a recess, its large black eyes filled with trepidation. Admiral Reynolds, it said, its voice a reedy whisper. Perhaps we can come to an arrangement. The Council is prepared to surrender Sirius to human custody to face your justice. In exchange, we ask that humanity stand down, that you forego any further retaliatory actions. Reynolds's jaw clenched, his eyes hardening. You protected them, he growled. You let them torture and murder our children, and now you want us to what? Forgive and forget? He stepped closer, looming over the cowering counselor. Humanity will no longer bow to your demands. We will no longer be the victims. If the Yarens come for us, we will meet them head-on, and we will make them pay for every life they've stolen. That is the only arrangement we will accept. As the counselor backed away, its spindly fingers twitching, it whispered, "Then you doom us all," before scuttling away. The trial concluded with Sirius sentenced to life imprisonment within the cold vacuum of space, forever denied the warmth of any star or the company of any living being. It was a fitting punishment for one so devoid of empathy or remorse. But even as the verdict was read, alarms began to blare. News feeds flooded with panicked reports of Yaren ships, an endless swarm pouring into human space. The invasion had begun. Anderson, his promotion to admiral freshly minted, stood on the bridge of his ship, staring out at the stars. Earth hung below, a fragile blue marble against the infinite black, its fate resting on the outcome of the coming battle. He clutched a small, worn photograph in his hand, a moment of quiet before the storm. He beamed down to a familiar hillside, the grass waving gently in the breeze. Tommy's headstone stood before him, a silent sentinel. Anderson knelt, placing the photo of Sirius's trial against the cool marble. "We got him, son," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "But it's not over. They're coming, and I have to go now. I have to fight to make sure no other little boys suffer as you did. I hope you can forgive me for not being there when you needed me most." He pressed his forehead to the stone, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I miss you, Tommy, every day. And I promise I'll make them pay for what they did to you, even if it costs me everything." With a final gentle touch, Anderson stood and beamed back to his ship. He strode onto the bridge, his eyes hard and determined, the crew snapping to attention, ready to follow their admiral into the jaws of hell itself. "Set a course for the front lines," Anderson ordered, his voice ringing with resolve. "It's time we show the Yaren what happens when you mess with humanity." The ship surged forward, the vanguard of Earth's defense hurtling toward a reckoning that would decide the fate of not just humanity, but the galaxy itself. Anderson gripped the arms of his chair, his son's face etched into his mind's eye. For Tommy, for every child lost, he would fight, he would win, or he would die trying.